fantastical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
Yes, welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for the Quinta Brunson and Lil Yachty SNL Roundtable. My name is Jon from the SNN. Very pumped to be with all of you on this Monday night. This is always my favorite show that I get to do when I have now watched the episode a second time, maybe a third time. Feel like I really grasp all the sketches, and I'm with some great panelists so we can stretch out our talk on the best moments of the night. And I would say, just off the top, I think this was one of the most fun, creative episodes of Saturday Night Live of the season, on top of what has already been a very good season of the show. So really can't wait to dive into it tonight with all of you and everybody in the chat as well. So first, let me introduce the panelists we have here tonight. And you may recognize her from some of our patron feedback shows previously, but now she has joined the inner circle at the Saturday Night Network, helping us a lot behind the scenes. It is Amanda Barkin. Amanda, how are you doing?
I am good. Happy that it feels kind of like spring here in Brooklyn, New York, finally.
Oh, that is very exciting. All right. Still a little bit to go in Montreal, but I will be coming to New York City next week. So I'm excited to get perhaps a little, it's not like Florida or like California, but like it's a little bit warmer, I'm sure. So excited to be there, and hopefully we'll get to see some of you in person next week. And if you're a listener and you live in New York, let me know. I would always love to see you guys and catch up. But joining us as well tonight is not from New York, from Boston. It is Andrew Haskell. Haskell, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Coming off for my wrestling fans, a great WrestleMania weekend with an SNL thrown in there. Excited to be on the panel. Excited to see you. Excited to talk about it.
Yeah. How does that work, Haskell? Do you watching both at the same time, or did they overlap at all?
So it used to be WrestleMania was one night on Sunday nights. Now WrestleMania is 2 nights. So it runs into SNL a little bit. I did have to do a little dual setup for the beginning of SNL.
Oh, wow, that is tough. Yeah, I remember back in the days on NBC, sometimes college football would run into SNL. It was a disaster. They had to delay the show. So always really tough when you got multiple commitments on Saturday nights. But also joining us tonight, so excited to get to talk to her. It is the wonderful Gabby Forbes-Bennett. Gabby, how are you doing?
I'm feeling fantastic here in Queens, not Jamaica, Queens, as is referenced in the episode, but, close enough. Big fan of Abbott Elementary, so I'm super excited to talk about Quinta today.
Exactly.
Queens, make some noise!
We'll get into it. We'll talk about it. But like you said, Quinta Brunson coming in to host the show, recently off of Abbott Elementary and also a Black Lady sketch show and many other projects. She was, I would say, a very hot name coming into the season for somebody who could be picked to host the show. I believe Nicole Rovine picked Quinta Brunson in our never hosted draft back in the summer. So great job, Nicole, on that. Another point for you. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people were expecting Quinta to host the show and were very excited when she was announced. I know me personally, I had very high expectations for what we were going to get to see because the hype was real. So Amanda, what were your thoughts when you found out that Quinta Brunson was going to be hosting Saturday Night Live?
I was very excited. Ultimately, not surprised. It was a really good move for them. The last patron feedback show that I was on, I talked about how we needed to get Quinta on the show. I think she's like a darling of the award circuits. Like every time, Abbott Elementary is crushing, and every time she gets an award, she's just like such a good, she's just awesome to watch. So I was really excited.
Yeah, me too. I mean, she came out and she looked the part for sure. And it was really great to get to hear her talk about some of her past experience and how, a lot of people could probably relate to this, where all they want to do is get on Saturday Night Live, and then another path opens for you and you end up going down that direction. But little did she know that it was going to come all the way back to getting to host SNL one day. So Haskell, give us your thoughts of when you found out that Quinta Brunson was going to be hosting Saturday Night Live.
I was pumped, man. Like, let me tell you, Abbott Elementary, one of my favorite shows on TV right now. When I'm not telling bad jokes on this podcast or telling worse jokes on stage, my actual day job is a middle school teacher. And so, that show is one of those where every time a new episode airs, I'm talking to somebody like, dude, they know what they're talking about. And knowing that her mom's a teacher, you see where a lot of that stuff comes in. So that was awesome. On top of having that school connection, I am network sitcoms are my thing. I've always loved network sitcoms, and this, like, I thought they were done. I thought they were dead. I was like, we'll never see another network sitcom move the needle. And out of nowhere comes Abbott Elementary, and it's great. So I love everything that, like, every award this show gets, all the praise and stuff. And to see a network TV star hosting SNL again, like, something just felt right about that. And Quinta Brunson being who it just made sense. She killed it. Perfect.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that in just a moment. The idea of a network TV star from a sitcom hosting Saturday Night Live nowadays, I think it's a really interesting discussion point that I want to get into. But first, I have to go to Gabby to find out her thoughts on Quinta Brunson hosting SNL and your history with Quinta.
Yeah, I was stoked to see that she was hosting, and also, like the rest of you, not surprised. Abbott Elementary has really taken off, and it is very refreshing to see a sitcom in this day and age, the day and age of streaming, actually still being incredibly successful. And I had known of her from like the BuzzFeed days. I don't know how many years ago that was. And so I knew that she could write and I knew that she could act even before Abbott. And so it was really nice seeing that I felt that she just fit in, that she would be able to fit in so naturally. And in my opinion, she did. And so it was just really wonderful to hear that she was able to get this opportunity.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that she could have been a cast member on the show, and it showed that on Saturday. I think she would have been a very good cast member of the show once upon a time. But let's continue this topic that Haskell brought up, the idea of somebody from a network sitcom hosting the show, because I found it a very fascinating discussion, and I think it is one we may have had a little bit when John Krasinski hosted the show in I guess I said that was season 46, when we were talking about, stars from the 2010s and like how, we didn't always get the stars that we wanted to. Like a lot of people wanted Nick Offerman to host the show from Parks and Rec. And, it just sort of felt like, somebody from Community. We never got that either. And it always felt like SNL was maybe ignoring some of those stars in the, post 2010s sort of, right? Because they did hit all like the Cheers and the Friends and the Seinfeld back in the day. But it started to feel at some points they looked in different directions toward movie stars or different categories of hosts. And I found it really fascinating that Quinta Brunson would be picked here to host the show. So, Haskell, I'd love, because this is such a passion topic of yours, I'd love to get your thoughts overall on like, why would SNL move away from this, and why should they continue to look in this direction, perhaps?
I think moving away from it just comes from generationally people not watching TV the same way, and TV wasn't creating stars. So SNL had no reason to go find the new star, which SNL should, but they weren't going to find that on TV. We hit a point with streaming where stars were coming to TV. When I always loved growing up, even stars that I didn't know, like going back and figuring out like this movie star now, what was the show that they broke through on? Like, I didn't know as a little kid. I knew George Clooney was a movie star. I didn't know he came up through ER. Like, and you don't have that anymore. So SNL has no reason to go try to find the new star doing that, which sucks because it's what kind of makes the show feel like new and hip, and you just don't really have that. But Abbott Elementary has really like tapped into something and has gotten people a little bit back into like appointment viewing for a sitcom, not necessarily on ABC, but maybe next day on Hulu. There's a lot of people that watch it, and I'm hoping that this continues to churn out a little bit, and we continue to see like TV shows create new stars who can host SNL and then can move on to become movie stars.
But do you think, by the way, and then I'll get Amanda and Gabby's thoughts on this as well. Do you think that if Abbott Elementary was on one of the streaming services, like a Netflix or Hulu or something, that it wouldn't have the critical acclaim, and then perhaps Quinta wouldn't be hosting the show? Like, does ABC have anything to do with this?
ABC has something to do with it because they still have, in a small way, a commitment to doing sitcoms right. Just get this off. I hate streaming. Streaming is killing TV, and they don't know how to do sitcoms. If Elementary started on Hulu or started on Netflix, it would have been 10 episodes long. Nothing would have actually developed. And the show wouldn't have been able to create this organic audience like it did. So the fact that it's on one of the original networks that still understands in a small way what a sitcom needs to develop has a lot to do with why the show is there and why Quinta Brunson was hosting SNL.
Amanda, let me get your thoughts on this conversation. What is your experience with some of these network sitcoms and your overall thoughts on Quinta hosting from one of them?
So now I'm nervous to tell Haskell this, but I stream Abbott Elementary on Hulu. That is how I consume the show. Most of the network shows that I've watched, I have streamed. Like Parks and Rec. The Office, I watched most of it live on networks, but that was like back in high school when I still lived at home and had cable. So I don't, I only have access to streaming. Like I don't have cable. Can't watch network television. So I don't disagree with you. I don't really know a lot about, I feel like what I know more about modern TV making is from the streaming platforms. I totally agree that all the sitcoms, we just don't have that anymore. And that's because of the domination that these streaming platforms have had. But I'm not going to like switch, spend another $100 a month to get cable now. So if they're not coming on the streaming platforms, I feel like I don't end up seeing them. And I wonder if other people are, a lot of my friends that I know watch Abbott also stream it. So I feel like that's a big part of the audience. And I want to say a large part of the fan base and the appeal and kind of the steam behind her, but I'm not sure. Now I'm curious, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is going to be a 2-part conversation because obviously next week we're going to talk a lot and at the end of the show a little bit about Molly Shannon coming back to host Saturday Night Live and the choice to have Molly perhaps and maybe not Anna Gasteyer, who currently has a network sitcom on NBC, and everyone was really clamoring for Anna to host the show, but instead we do get a network sitcom host from ABC, not NBC, which is interesting to think about. And maybe perhaps some of our listeners, like Amanda, wouldn't have even known that Abbott Elementary is on ABC and only watched it on Hulu. So Gabby, I would love to get your thoughts and perspective on this conversation as well.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle where I fully, I grew up on these sitcoms on like primetime television. And so it obviously holds a very special place in my heart. But I don't have, access to that in my current living situation. It's something that I had when I grew up. And so I stream everything. And I'm in an interesting situation where I find it that I will watch, the new episodes of Abbott weekly as if I was watching it like on TV, but I'm watching it, the Thursday night instead of the Wednesday, which it aired. And I find myself like rooting for it to have success on network television and not so much streaming, just because I feel that, it's streaming is so much more accessible. It's as a popular show, it's, a no-brainer that it's going to have success on a streaming service. And so I feel that where we are right now, there's still a kind of struggle to get success if it was, if it was just on network television. And so I still want that to exist in some form, even though, I don't know, the practicality of it, moving forward is kind of questionable.
Absolutely. Haskell, go ahead.
I'm sending both of you a HD digital antenna so that you can pick up ABC and watch it on Wednesdays.
Thank you.
Let me ask, we'll get into SNL talk. We're going to talk all about the episode in just a little bit, but I had a friend recently ask me for what my sitcom Mount Rushmore was, which was like, if you had to pick your top 4 sitcoms of all time, what would they be? And I was like really just struggling with this a lot because I loved a lot of the sitcoms that aired in the 2010s, like Parks and Rec, like The Office, 30 Rock was great also, but it's like a lot of the ones from when I was like a kid that I feel like I can't like miss. So I don't know if I should give mine or like if anybody in the panel can think of theirs. I'm really curious. Do you have 4, Haskell?
Do you want mine or what I think is the greatest?
I want yours because I don't know. What's more interesting? You tell me.
So for me, the greatest, you got to go I Love Lucy, All in the Family,
okay.
Seinfeld, and I don't know if I can fill out the 4th. That would be like a real like battle royale.
Sure.
For that 4th
What's yours,
spot. For me, shows that like I enjoyed the most, The Office, Community, How I Met Your Mother, and again, the fourth is now I'm gonna like leave something out. I'm gonna go with an animated one. I'm gonna go with Family Guy for me.
Okay, could Abbott Elementary potentially make your Mount Rushmore one day? Is that possible?
Sure. If it's 7 seasons and really develops and part of those shows it's growing up with a show. And if a show and growing up doesn't just happen when you're a kid, so you can grow up with a show, but not if it only lasts 4 seasons.
Yeah, that is very true. And that is a problem with streaming, is that they may not give these shows a chance as much. But Gabby, do you have a Mount Rushmore?
So it would have to be 30 Rock, Happy Endings. I don't know if anyone remembers that show. That was my first
Wilson.
heartbreak. Yeah, of course. My first heartbreak of when it got canceled. I was just completely blindsided. I mean, I was in high school. So I just didn't understand why. I thought it was so good. I'd have to say The Office, because I did watch a few of those seasons live, and probably How I Met Your Mother, because I watched the later seasons live.
Wow, I love How I Met Your Mother, but I can't even go back and watch that show anymore. Amanda, do you have a Mount Rushmore of sitcoms?
No, I'm too stressed out about coming up with it. No, but definitely 30 Rock up there, and I think commercially, Friends has to be up there. Not for me, and definitely not after Quinta pointed out there are no Black people in the entire series. But commercially, it's like the most successful sitcom of all times, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, like, personally, like, I totally understand everything that people were saying, including Quinta about Friends. But Friends is in my Mount Rushmore. It's like one of my favorite shows of all time. Friends. I also have Saved by the Bell on mine. That 70s show, and then I would say not 30 Rock, but Third Rock from the Sun. Jane Curtin. Just that to me is like probably my top 4. That I really struggled with that. When
John mentioned Third Rock from the Sun. All the Patreons they drink. You don't know this, John, but every time you mention Third Rock from the Sun, we all drink.
Okay, good to know. All right. Well, let's get into the talk about this particular episode. And we opened up this episode with what else but the Trump indictment story, where we found out that earlier, it must have been Thursday or Friday, that he was finally going to get indicted for his role in paying hush money to the whole Stormy Daniels situation, and what would SNL do to cover it. There was originally thought that there might be some type of Gwyneth Paltrow cold open, but I think that went out the window as soon as the Trump stuff went down. And of course, they decided to go ahead with putting JAJ as Donald Trump for the 13th time, and he is there to sell albums. So he comes out basically at the start of the show with his very classic Taylor Swift line.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
And some really fun references, including this one.
We beat Flowers by Miley, which, as we all know, is about Liam.
Yeah, just really great. I love the writing that JJ helps write these. I love the fact that he just comes in and helps put in some of these lines because he's so brilliant at Trump. But then we get some interactions between him with Keenan as Don King, Devin Walker as Afroman, Mikey as Donald Trump Jr. as well. So let's talk about the cold open from this week. Did they make the right decision in the way that they covered it? Amanda, what did you think of it?
I thought it was such a missed opportunity to not do like a Gwyneth Paltrow, Donald Trump next to each other. That was all over social media because the verdict came down in her favor the same day that he got indicted. And I thought it was just hilarious, the takes on social media that, all was right in the world and justice was served in both parties. I mean, I'm a lawyer in New York, so like maybe it's just like too close to home, but I'm so burnt out by the situation. You knew they had to do it. I was a little bit encouraged by Mikey Day as Don Jr. As Don Jr. Saying, this might be the last time we see you, because that would be great for me to not see him. What?
Can I ask something about that line? I brought this up on the weekend, but could this be meta? We'll talk about this.
Dad, this is really emotional. It might be the last time I see you.
I just want to say, like, if Mikey Day does leave the show at the end of the season, and I think we're going to talk a lot about Mikey tonight, that could be an interesting line foreshadowing things, because sometimes SNL likes to do that and give those hints. Okay.
I was saying that was the last Trump impression because he's
sure.
But I don't mean to say that I would love for that to be Mikey Day's swan song in a cold open. But I mean, it was good. like all of them, it ran a little bit long, but I thought it was good. It's so hard not to like JJ's impression, especially when he's just monologuing and sounding like a lunatic. So that was exciting. I thought Devin was really good. It was exciting to see him pop in, but do we need like the whole parade of people? Probably not, and probably not at the expense of other things that were cut, but it was good. It was good. They had to do it. So
Haskell, can I ask you something? I feel like we've had a bit of this conversation in the past, but I really just want to get this answer from you, which is, do you think if James Austin Johnson came onto the show in season 42, for example, and he played Trump throughout the Trump era, that SNL would have been better for it? Or we are just blessed with the fact that he only came into the Trump impression post Trump's time as president?
SNL would have been better for it. It would have been a better character. I think he lends something to the character that makes it better to write. I think he has an understanding of the character that he wants to play Trump as, which would have helped it out. But I don't know if JAJ would have been better for it, which kind of leads me into my thought on the cold open, which is, as good as he is at it, and I love his Trump impression, I don't know if it is Trump. I don't know if it's the way they do Trump. I'm kind of already like, all right, that's okay. Like I'm at the point that I was with Alec Baldwin after 3 seasons, where I'm like, I get it. Like I feel like Chat GPT could have written this sketch if you just fed them everything JJ did. And there's something I don't like. He's way better with his pacing as Trump than Alec Baldwin was, but I still don't like the pacing of it. I think this would have been way better if they advertised it as the Trump CD, like right off the bat. And they've done this before where they'll do almost live versions of like, hey, it's what Trump calls a defense. And like, so if the pacing was that we go to some sort of graphic with Higgins kind of narrating it, saying, featuring hits such as da da da, and you can make your jokes, and Afro Man, and then he's already on screen as Afro Man, and then we go back to the graphic, and then Don King's already on stage. I think the pacing would have been better, but something about the pacing is just so like, it's 11:30. You're lulling me to sleep instead of getting me excited about it, and ultimately, I know some of these guys were in the news and Don Jr. makes sense, but what an oddly uninspired collection of impressions to use in the cold open of all things.
What, you weren't expecting an Afro Man impression this week?
I was not.
Yeah. I will say, him singing different songs, I think was a really fun take on that we really didn't get from him previously. So that's why it felt fresh for me. Like him singing ironic.
It's like rain on your wedding day. Who would have thought it figures?
Like, I thought that was good. And I thought it was creative in the way that they did that. So I think that they could have just really continued to dive into that.
That's what I'm saying, is I wish the whole sketch was just them diving into the CD more.
Fair enough. Totally agree with you. But Gabby, let me get your thoughts as well on the cold open from this week.
Yeah, I also thought it dragged on a little bit too long. But now that Amanda brings it up, I think that it would have been a great opportunity to bring on like a Gwyneth Paltrow so that they can do some kind of duet. And it's just something that I noticed. Maybe I'm just on Twitter far too much, but there was this meme going around, I think like last month or 2 months ago, where it was a photo of Hillary and Trump on the debate stage, and they both had microphones, and it looked like they were singing. I don't know if anyone has seen this. And, the original tweet said something along the lines of like, what are they singing? And I saw that Hillary Clinton herself quote tweeted it, saying that she was singing Islands in the Stream and he was just yelling nonsense. And I just think it's so funny that he was actually singing. They had him sing Islands in the Stream in this sketch. That's like the first thing that popped in my mind.
Oh, that's so great. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
This was like to me, this was pretty good. I totally agree that we could have cut it down to some of the other stuff. And I'll say, like, look, some of the writers of the sketch, Allison Gates, Will Steven, Ken Sublette, and James Austin Johnson, I'm sure they all contribute in different fashions to this particular sketch. But I will give credit to JAJ because I know he really puts those effort into those beginning lines when he's coming up with how to mix pop culture into the Trump speak. So I'll say great job there. And I think it's not something that we have to completely give up on because this guy's going to be in the news even, tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with that moving forward and how they can keep it fresh. All right. Y'all ready to get into the episode and talk about some of the sketches from this week? Okay, Amanda, starting with you, what is the moment or sketch of the night that you would like to talk about?
Well, first, I just want to say that I read today that Trump's mugshot is going to be like the most shared photo on the internet of this decade. So I think that's interesting. That's all. The sketch that I want to talk about is drug dealers. I'm not sure why now as I'm saying it. I thought it was a really interesting choice to have that be the first sketch of the night. I'm a little bit curious as to how that happened and like who was gunning for it, but I thought it was super high energy and it made me laugh and kind of set the tone for like what I thought was a very silly, playful night and but like kind of dark, but also playful at the same time, which to me is when I think SNL is best. That's just my style of comedy. And I mean, this was like the most we saw of Andrew Dismukes probably, and he kind of embodies that silly darkness that I really look for. I also didn't realize that Quinta Brunson singing Panic at the Disco was everything that I've ever needed. So I'm going to be watching that clip alone. And then Andrew Dismukes finishing the line for a very long time. So that is it. It just was really interesting. I think it was different. It was funny. I really like to see Marcelo play with other people, so I enjoyed that. He had got to interact with a lot of the other cast members in it, so I really liked it.
It was really strong. I mean, to play that particular line that you referenced for all the listeners, I'll do that now.
Mine is like, I chimed in with the haven't you people ever heard of closing the goddamn door.
I didn't know that Dismukes could sing like that. Like, Dismukes has a cannon of a voice, like unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, that was really fun. So basically what we get here is like a stand-up exercise where they're just like, all the writers here, Che, Josh Padden, Pete Schultz, Brian Tucker, they're probably all sitting around and they're like, hey, like, what is so white? And then they would just have these things where they would try and one up each other. And ultimately they turned it into a sketch. And I thought it was just really fun. I compared it on Saturday to like having an appetizer to start off the show. Cause Amanda, I think it was a great way to jump into the show. It wasn't too heavy production wise. It felt like light and fun. And I think this was a really, really solid sketch, capped off by a really fun, turn on the sketch with Michael Longfellow trying to sell black tar heroin, which was a great, when he was all Gautier in the piece coming out like that. But Haskell, I mean, you're a stand-up yourself, so not necessarily this subject matter, but how did you feel like the exercise came across through the sketch?
Funny enough, my stand-up is mostly making fun of white guys, one white guy in particular, myself. But it is a great way to start the show with just these like rapid fire jokes. But what I love about it is like, anytime you kind of dive into any race, and TJ, one of our panelists, one of our regulars here, we talked about this once on the show. And every time I see somebody doing some sort of racial humor, I come back to this thought that he said, where if you're really broad, it shows that you don't know somebody. And that's when it comes across as like offensive. But when you can make a joke about another culture and it's so specific that it shows that you have an understanding of that culture, it comes across really funny. And it also kind of is like, see, I'm not trying to offend, like we're in this together. And I thought this sketch did that really well. They weren't making super broad, like white jokes. Like they were to specifically come up with a Panic at the Disco song and sing it is way different than like, my cocaine's so white it listens to Billy Joel. Like that would have been like, okay, yeah, haha. But to get specific about it it kind of just kept firing off that way, is what like worked so well about it.
Yeah, and I think it also helps when you have people of different backgrounds and cultures writing together, because then you're able to talk about your experiences or your experiences with other people, and then you get to find that perfect middle ground of like what is kosher, what may not be, and what is actually funny to the audience. So, Gabby, what were your thoughts on the drug dealer sketch?
Yeah, I mean, just going off of what you and Haskell just said, it really is a display of, you need to understand the culture enough to know exactly how to make fun of it in a way that everyone laughs. And so that's kind of how I felt about it. And just yeah, the energy that it had, I just really appreciated it at the start of the episode. It really felt like I could almost visualize the writer's room and, hearing, just people one-upping each other and just bouncing these ideas. It was almost like it felt like a type of yo mama joke that was an entire an entire sketch.
Yeah, that is a great point. So our friend Ellis prepared this for us. We were going to post it on social media yesterday, but we didn't get a chance to. And I thought it'd be fun to bring up on the podcast, which is basically a side by side, if you're watching visually, of Michael Longfellow with his background he comes out as, and then also the very fun. I think it was it a digital short back in the day where we had Gautier doing the "Somebody That I Used to Know" video with Taran Killam and Andy Samberg there. So just a fun side by side to see SNL's take on something like this. But how great was Michael Longfellow in this sketch? So good. Yeah. Okay. Let's. Anything else, or we're good on this one? All right. Let's get to our next sketch that we want to talk about. Haskell, sending it over to you.
My favorite sketch of the night was the traffic altercation sketch. And my theme of the night was taking, I don't want to call them thin premises, but really simple premises and really squeezing them out, which typically is a recipe for disaster. And for some reason for the show, it wasn't. Like, there was a couple of sketches where they took just a simple premise and expanded it, and it just kept working. And this was the best one. It's very sort of different for SNL. It was very basic. It was very sort of, it wasn't very dynamic in their movements. Obviously, everybody in the sketch is sort of staying still, but the combination of the miming with the way they're going back and forth was great. There's a couple of great callbacks in this sketch, with Mikey Day telling Chloe don't say bitch, and then referring to her as like, it was just really fun to see how they came up with the different like hand signals and sort of the how that they did that. The Mikey Day saying he didn't like that Chloe used two hands was another like classic. And then I really liked at the end of the sketch, you feel like they're bringing you down like a very typical kind of end of a sketch path where you find out they're both divorced and you're like, oh, it's going to turn and they're going to end up like driving away together. And Quinta nails it when she says, do you think you might want to eat this butt? And it's, oh my God, it was a great, and it was just very, very different. I don't remember seeing anything, at least recently, that was doing that.
It was so great. I love that Mikey Day and Sridhar Seidel felt like, and Vanessa Jackson, who contributed this one as well. I love that they felt like that they could pull this off on Saturday Night Live, right? Like, it's not this. I said this could been a pre-tape, like easily. They absolutely could have made this into a pre-tape, but the fact that it was live is exactly what you wanted. They challenged themselves to be able to pull something like this off. So just from a production angle, I'm really impressed that Mikey in his 7th season would want to do something like this. And I'm so excited to get to talk about him and his role on the show. But Gabby, I want to get first your thoughts on this sketch and what you saw from the traffic altercation sketch.
I thought it was just incredibly impressive, to be honest. And while watching it, I was just wondering, how exactly is this set up? And so I do appreciate that at the end of the sketch, they had that shot that shows, the two empty cars on the stage, and you're able to see, just the green screen around it. So I appreciated that behind the scenes. But I thought that it was also, the pacing was like perfect for me, that back and forth. I was when it started, I was wondering, like, where can we go from here? Because it seemed almost as if, there's only enough miming that you can do while it's still to make it still funny and make, keep the audience engaged. But I mean, with the twist in the end and with Ego popping out, I think that it just, every time that I felt like I might, just think, okay, we get it, I was just kind of reeled right back in.
100%. I also feel like there was a characterization choice that Mikey and Quinta made, and you'll hear it in some of the lines, which is neither of them felt overconfident in what they were saying. They weren't playing this as, somebody who got hit or hit somebody and they were like, you asshole. Like, they weren't like that. They were almost sounding nervous in what they were saying, that it was like the hesitation in their voice came through. And I think that really led to them being able to emphasize the hand motions that they were making, because they were almost like there was a game of like, I want to say this thing to you, but I don't know how to say it, because in the world of the sketch, you're not supposed to be able to properly hear me because your window's up, I guess. But I think it's so great. And you hear it in some of the lines, how they hesitate, like,
Eat my butt. All of this.
And then they're talking about like the window rolling up and down. And Quinta says,
it wouldn't read.
How she like, those hesitations that she's making where she says like it twice, like that's probably in the cue cards, like how she's supposed to hesitate like that. And I think it's such a great character choice that they made with this particular sketch to really show the world of the sketch. So Amanda, what did you think about what you saw from the traffic altercation sketch?
I loved it. I think it was a really good structure. I really liked, there were two primary characters, one being the host, and she really got to showcase her abilities. I thought Chloe was really standout, and I thought Ego was really standout. I mean, Ego, I think, kills it every time she's on screen. If she's on screen for 3 seconds, if she's, anchoring a sketch, it doesn't matter. But I think it's really powerful when she can just pop in and be super memorable. So just a shout out to Ego for that. But I just really liked the sketch that they let the host do her thing. They didn't parade through a bunch of other cast members. It was just really focused. And I mean, I was invested in Mikey and Quinta's conversation and where it was going to go. So I really liked it. And I think Chloe was really, really funny. She was really fantastic. Really well cast in that too.
100%. I was going to say, like, we had a conversation, I forget which patron feedback show it was, but about like Chloe in the types of roles that she's given and why she may choose to do characters in sketches versus playing roles like this. And I think she's so good at like playing the daughter, or like the B role, or even in the Bosses sketch where she's playing the person. She's not playing the character that's like doing the harassing. She's being the harassed. And I think she's really good at playing roles like that. And I just think, Haskell brought it up, but these lines were so hilarious.
You suck.
When she's doing those hand motions, which it was like Mikey's reaction to that was like,
First of all, I don't love that you use two hands.
And like he's almost laughing as he says it. Like, to me, that might be like Mikey's best line of the season. So let's talk about Mikey Day for a second, who in his 7th season of the show, like I said, could be having perhaps his best season. One of the questions we asked on social media today was, is this Mikey Day's most impressive season? And to give you some background, last season going into 47, I was like, hey, we're getting Kyle Mooney without Beck Bennett. Maybe he'll be inspired to give us things that we haven't seen before. And with all respect to Kyle, I don't know that he did that in 47, but I was thinking now, okay, we're getting Mikey Day without Alex Moffat. And I actually think like whatever has inspired Mikey, who has lost a lot of his counterparts he's been with for years, has pushed him to be back in this role where he's feeling fresh every time he produces something this season, in a way that maybe not since his first season that he's been able to do. So Haskell, what are your overall thoughts on Mikey Day's season so far?
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be the season where he has the biggest impact, just because of some of the characters and mostly impressions that he did earlier in his tenure. But I feel like he's not restrained to those certain things anymore. So we are seeing like different fresh takes on the different types of characters that he's playing. I also feel like he's in his time on SNL, he has done a lot of like the at the end of his rope straight man, where he is doing the reacting and he's kind of, our, as the audience, mouthpiece of explaining how absurd everything is around him. And I feel like he's being asked to do less of that this year, and it's allowing him to do some more character work, some more off the wall sort of stuff.
Yeah, and just for like some of our listeners who don't follow this stuff as closely as we do, let me just say from the last, I'd say 6 episodes of the show, he's produced State Farm, that, you know, parody that we had with Michael B. Jordan, Mario Kart, which went viral with Pedro Pascal. In Travis Kelce's episode, he did the American Girl Cafe. He was also on Weekend Update with Punky Johnson, which was really great. Jenna Ortega's episode last time, he did School versus School, that, you know, the one that was like the X-Men, the Ridiculousness one, and the Varsity Valley. So he got 3 sketches on there, and now he did Traffic Altercation. So his 2023 has been, to me, he's probably the MVP of the show in 2023. Gabby, I'm curious your thoughts on Mikey overall and what you're going to see from him.
Yeah, no, I really feel like he's kind of in a role or a position now where he's so senior, but he's still kind of like in the trenches with the newer cast members. And I think that he's able to, you know, in this new kind of, you know, this different character work that he's doing, able to bring, like, I don't know, in a way, merge the two worlds, the older and the more junior, whatever nonsense is now coming forth, and ridiculousness that's coming forth in the scenes. And I really do appreciate that he's like in there with them, you know, going through this, instead of just, you know, being that straight man character who's, you know, he's like adapting.
Absolutely. Amanda, any final thoughts on Mikey Day?
I think that JJ is playing a lot of roles that previously would have defaulted to Mikey, and I think that has given him some room to kind of do more character work, less straight man work, and kind of maybe work harder at developing these characters behind the scenes and kind of lean into it. So it's really, I feel like he's really kind of playing weirder characters this year, and I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all props to him. I hope he keeps going for the next few episodes, because he's been producing some great stuff. And also big shout out to Streeter Seidel, who works with him on all of that stuff. Okay, let's talk to Gabby about the sketch that she wants to talk about.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the Please Don't Destroy sketch. As a native New Yorker from Queens, I felt like this had to be done. I will say I knew exactly what we were in for as soon as they said that they had been in New York since college, except for COVID. I'm like, oh, okay, I know exactly where this is going. And like all of the wonderful sound bites that came from it, including the, what was it? Make some noise if you're from Queens.
Yeah, here, I'll play that for you guys.
Queens, make some noise!
There you go. Yeah, I was on a work call earlier today, and it was just kind of like an introductory, like getting to know people call. And there were a few of us from Queens, and I almost, I was tempted to make some noise, but I refrained.
Oh, please do that next time.
Yeah, okay, next time. I will say the Jamaican restaurant experience, I'm surprised that they got as far as they did. I don't know if any one of you has had experience ordering from a Jamaican restaurant in New York, but they usually, like, they're not known for being accommodating, I'll say. It's very much, oh, you want this? Well, we don't have it. Or actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to give you, and you will accept it and you will enjoy it because it's still tasty. So the fact that they just wash all of that seasoning off of that jerk chicken and gave them their plain chicken was fascinating to me personally. But yeah, I thought that it was, you know, we've seen these kinds of sketches from SNL before, like many times over the years. The kind of like authentic New Yorker, what it's like to be a New Yorker kind of thing. And so it's always nice, I think, to see a newer take on it, like a fresher take. And in my opinion, that's kind of what this served as for me.
Yeah, I didn't give them enough credit on Saturday when I saw this for the first time as being, you know, like that they were just so perfectly well cast as these 3 guys who clearly like are completely ignorant and don't understand other cultures. And you know, we got to see John Higgins' character get exposed at the end of the sketch when he's like,
My father is a lawyer.
Okay, now we know who you are. So I thought it was really, really funny to get to see them like try and like fit in with the culture when clearly they have like no real attempts to. So it was actually probably the sketch that I would say that I was turned around the most on during my second watch, because I was so jarred by the fact that it was such a different take on a PDD sketch. We're so used to the fast jump cuts and the in and out of the office, and most like either they're playing themselves or versions of themselves, that we've never really seen something like this, that I really needed to give it that second watch to get it. And I think that I have now, so I'm actually higher on it. Amanda, you are a lawyer, so what are your thoughts on this PDD feature?
I'm a lawyer, and I also stayed in New York through the whole pandemic. I hunkered down and did not go to Connecticut because I did not want to kill my parents. So, just wanted to point that out. What I think was interesting is that they chose this pre-tape to depart from themselves. Like, they are three silly, goofy white boys that could have been in that situation as themselves. I feel like that's a lot of what they play on. So I think it was interesting, and I'm curious about the choice to depart from a play on themselves in this situation when the characters that they play, which is whatever a caricature of themselves anyway, or what we've come to know as who they are, could have worked also. So I'm just curious about that. And I feel like it was just like they all do kind of dress like hipsters anyway, just not to that extreme. Like they were obviously like they were all wearing, denim jackets, like probably vanity glasses, and like had some kind of like funkier facial hair than they usually do. But they are also like that prototype, just not so ridiculous. So I think it would have worked as them also. I also didn't love it, and I liked it better on the rewatch, I think, because it departed from the pacing. I really love the PDD pacing, is that it's like no matter what the premise is, it's going to be punchy, you're going to be in, you're going to be out, it's good for a bunch of laughs. And it was kind of different in that. I thought Punky was really amazing in this. I thought Quinta was great. It was funny that they were like, you're not Jamaican, like, and she was like, yeah, I am. That was ridiculous. It was good. It was good.
Yeah. Haskell, what do you think? I mean, did it make a difference to you in watching this that the PDD boys were not playing themselves?
It made a difference because I'm like on the opposite end of the spectrum. That was the biggest disappointing sketch of the night for me. And I think that was a huge swing and a miss for PDD. If I'm them, I'm jumping back into their little sandbox of an office for the next couple sketches, especially when you got your movie that's being like, that was a swing and a miss.
But
like,
why?
You made a joke that the white boy's dad, he yells, "Do you know my dad's a lawyer?" Like, what's the next sketch going to be? You're playing old guys and they have to tell you that it's a Wendy's. Like that, these guys are so good to make that was a tie. Like Gabby, when you said like, oh, I knew exactly what you were getting into from the first line. So did I, but not in a good way. And like, when you say like, SNL has done this before. I agree to almost an issue. Like, I feel like everybody has made a joke about how these kids who are supported by their parents go to New York and call themselves New Yorkers, that I was just kind of waiting for that classic, like PDD, like really off the wall thing to happen. And it didn't happen. So I was just super disappointed in like sort of the fact that it didn't go anywhere. And I also don't think when they got to the Jamaican restaurant, it didn't do the thing that I was hoping, which was to show a really good understanding of that culture, where you go, oh, okay, these guys are making fun of, these guys do go to the Jamaican restaurant. They understand the culture and they're making fun of the people they see. So that's where I was a little like, nah, I go back to your office. You kill it in that office. I want to see you there.
But can I ask you, if this was, let's say, Andrew and JJ and another white guy on the cast, let's say, do you think that this makes a difference, or it's the fact that it's PG and you were so like not used to seeing them in these roles and you actually prefer them in the other roles that changed your thought on the particular pre-tape?
It's definitely maybe a little bit more disappointing that's PDD, but if it's that exact sketch, again, I just feel like I've seen it before. It didn't elevate anywhere past anything. And that, again, it's going to be a stupid little nitpick, but that my dad's a lawyer line is going to stick with me of like, you go on Twitter and somebody with 6 followers is making that joke. Like it didn't work for me.
Interesting.
Now that you're saying that, I agree. Like I hadn't thought it. Like none of the jokes are particularly specific, or like the way we were talking about before, like the white people jokes that were just so specific that they're funny. They weren't just like generalizations. Like kind of the arc was like, we're gonna go in and ask for like really bland chicken, which like, you know, white people don't like spices. Like that. Yeah, it could have been more clever.
Yeah, for sure. I'll say, just from a personal perspective, oftentimes I'll order food and I'll be like, I don't want it, like, I'll say like no spice, but what I mean is like not spicy. And then my girlfriend would be like, you can't say no spice because then they're not going to like put spice on your stuff. So I can relate in that sense. I will say also that the chat has been talking about when this was supposed to appear in the episode, and was it maybe hurt by appearing at the end of the night. So actually in the original air rundown, this was supposed to take place right after the midwife sketch. So update, midwife, PDD. And then Bosses was supposed to be at the end of the night, the final like 10-1 to finish things off. But because update went long, they switched the PDD and Bosses sketch, and they removed, which was cut for time, a James Bond sketch. So originally PDD was going to be second after update, which may have, I guess, if you are, you know, into watching things at certain times, it may have affected your perception of the sketch. So just a little note for all of you. Also, just will say, though the "my father is a lawyer" line did not appeal to Haskell, this line must have.
The Bodega.
Come on, the Bodega. Did that work for you?
Yeah, I'll give him that one.
Okay, good. All right. Well, speaking of weekend update, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this crazy moment that happened during the night. So I'm sure if you were watching this live, you were like, what is going on weekend update? So here we go. We start things off. Colin Jost, Michael Che doing their normal thing, except Colin Jost is getting a few laughs. Like, I wouldn't say it was no laughs, but he was getting some laughs. And then he starts talking a little bit about the January 7th stuff or January 6th stuff. And then he goes talking about all this, being the only protester there. And here's what happens.
And I went down to the courthouse today, and I was the only protester there. You stink!
So somebody yells, "You stink," and everyone's like freaking out. And what happened is Michael Che earlier in the night went out into the Peacock Lounge and told as many people as he could, went on the microphone. And there's some video of this that appeared on Instagram, if you got to check it out on Che's Instagram story, where he asked everybody, as an April Fool's joke, it's only the second SNL episode ever to air on April Fool's, don't laugh at Colin's jokes. Please laugh at my jokes, and we'll make it a big April Fool's thing. It'll be a great prank. So Colin is freaking out. So John Higgins comes towards which you don't see on screen, comes towards the front of the audience and yells, "You stink." Colin is freaking out. And Che says this.
I told them not to laugh at your favorite food.
Which must be like the loudest the audience has gotten maybe since the Reggae Jean Page episode. Like this, they were going absolutely nuts for this. I think this was so brilliant, and just so many moments from Colin as she's trying to process all this.
Am I not Mike? You're evil.
Finally,
that's the meanest thing you've ever done.
This was so great and so brilliant. And I have to say, I mean, a lot of people were ready to move on from Colin and Che, but this cemented it for me. They still have it. So, Amanda, what did you think of this moment?
I was confused at first. On the rewatch, people are still laughing for Colin, just not nearly as much as they are for Che. And especially I feel like when he comes out and he says like, "Oh, like I'm Colin Jost," people go wild. And that didn't happen. Yeah, I really loved it. It was like so Che to me, and it was fun. It was like what you want to see in a live show. Like, why be live if you're not gonna like fuck with your co-anchor? So it was just great to see it. And I don't know how they can't do the same exact thing again, but I'd like to see more of that. And he does that kind of with Sarah, but I'd like to see other people involved. And I like the organic breaking in the sense that someone's like actually playing a prank on you. So I don't know if they can do it outside of April Fool's, but I would like to see more of it.
For sure. And like we have not gotten a joke swap in a very long time
Yeah.
because of the fact that all of these cast members have been leaving the show on like the important dates, and maybe like Omicron impacted that too. Like just really haven't gotten one probably in a very long time. So this was the closest thing that we got to seeing them like interact and do that type of thing that sort of is fresh. But even on top of that, the joke swaps, they do them in dress rehearsals. So like this was something that wasn't even done in dress. It was completely live for the show and makes the show feel like you have to be there to watch it. So Haskell, I'm sure you must have loved this moment.
Yeah, the little thing I love about it too is like I don't know if he still does, but I know for a while Che was one of the like warm up acts for the audience, and he would run the audience through like the emergency exits, stuff like that before the show. So I assumed that's when he told them. I love the fact that he went out to the Peacock Lounge, though. It just shows how giddy he was about this. And that's all I can like hear in his laugh is like pure giddiness when he gets to tell him it was an April Fool's joke. Yeah, like you said, like after all these years of them together, they've gotten this great chemistry and they're so good together. But it's like we've graduated past the joke swap to the point where you're like, they're so good, but what's left for them to do? So you did still have this moment of them doing something different, something that we haven't seen. I mean, imagine you work on a comedy show, you write jokes for a living, and you went into the audience and you told them, hey, don't laugh. Like, that's a great bit.
It's really great. I actually saw that. I was like, I don't know how I came across this. Maybe it was on Reddit somewhere, but they posted that I think on Jake and Amir back in the day, a similar prank was performed on Streeter Seidel when he was performing at UCB, and they told the entire audience not to laugh at him, and he's absolutely freaking out. And the video is up on YouTube where he's like literally left the club. He's like, I don't need this, and he's like walking on the streets and stuff. So like the idea of the prank itself, I wouldn't say is like the most crazy idea in the world, but like for a show like SNL, which has become extremely rigid in the format, that they are willing to break format is fascinating to me. And that I love that aspect of it. So, Gabby, what were your thoughts on this moment on Weekend Update?
Yeah, I loved it. When it happened, the first thought that came to my mind was like, I like it when they kind of poke fun at Colin. When was the last, like, I was trying to rack my brain to think when the last time was that I saw the joke swap, and I'm like, they should bring that back. Those are enjoyable. But yeah, I'm always a fan when the other cast members poke a little bit of fun at Colin Jost, because I feel like he takes it very well, even though I'm sure this was probably one of the most insane things to happen to him live on air. I think he still handled it like a champ. And I mean, even Marcelo made him make fun of himself a little bit when he popped on and had him admit that he was friends with Armie Hammer. And so I don't know, I just, that moment where he just kind of breaks a little bit and just can't hold in the laughter, I think that it's just pretty entertaining.
100%. Chat, do you remember when the last time we had a joke swap was? Like, it must be in season 46. We definitely did not get it last season. So, it's funny to me because I think that this moment was so great and will be one of the moments we'll talk about at the end of the season, but it is to me an overall indication or microcosm of the season as a whole, being willing to experiment and try new things. I think I called this episode one of the most creative episodes we've gotten in this era of the show. And I think the fact that you've injected new blood into the show, there's a lot of new writers over the last couple of years, makes people want to take chances on stuff. So I think that this is a very early sign of something we could see from this new era. And it's way, way too early to start talking about, is this another or the next golden era of the show? But I think we have all the makings or all the seeds of what could be the next great era of the show, with some of the legacy cast members left over being inspired and some of the new cast members really pushing themselves forward. So it was an absolute pleasure to watch on Saturday. Amanda.
I know that we haven't had joke swap in a while, but is it just me, or does anyone else feel like Colin hasn't, like, I still feel like the writers are writing for Colin to be surprised and like embarrassed about what he has to say. Like, I feel like Colin's delivery is that he's like often like exasperated about what he has to say when he reads the cue cards. Like, I still feel like they make him say ridiculous things the way that Che does, specifically during the joke swap. Like I get that sense from Colin most updates for at least one or two of the jokes.
I just get the feeling that as much as he's leaned into it, there's a part of Colin jokes that still squirms a little bit at like the rich conservative Colin Jost who's gonna support the Republicans. Like he just has this squirminess, and they go to that well a lot. And every time he still looks like, yeah, okay, I know what I look like, and I know where I went to school, and all that sort of stuff. But that's not me. So I think that's part of it, is that he still is like just a little bit doesn't want to deliver that joke. And it comes, but it makes for a really, really great delivery.
Right. Whereas Che is totally comfortable, like with the sexist lines, like he leans into it and it seems like he wrote it and he was ready and excited to say it, and then ready to respond to the audience who if like people kind of, grit their teeth. He's like, oh, what? He has no problem with the off-color jokes, whereas Colin, I guess, still his personality is that he's still not thrilled to be saying it on live television, or that's the shtick.
Yeah. And it's crazy that after this long, it could still feel fresh. So that's what's fun about it. So let's keep going with our show, where we will do one more round around the round table and ask each of you if there are any other moments from the night that you would like to talk about. So Amanda, was there anything else that you would like us to do some rapid fire on?
You want me to talk about the Bachelorette sketch?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, somebody should.
I thought it was very funny. I think that it could have gone a little bit more specific as well. And maybe this is kind of keeping with our theme tonight of like show that you really know what you're talking about to make fun of it. And I just, the deep cuts are just funny because it's true. They could have gone a little bit deeper with it. I have been in bridal parties. I've been to bachelorettes. All my friends are very chill, but I know a lot of horror stories. I've heard a lot of horror stories about my friends who have been in bridal parties that were not so chill. So it definitely rings true, but it was like a little bit surface level to me. You spend a lot of money, you're forced to drink for 48 hours in Nashville, riding a bike, wearing, a hat, and you've been up since 6 a.m. doing yoga or whatever they were doing, pole dancing. So it's funny, but like it could have been more specific. That's Gabby, any?
Yeah, I have the same thoughts. I thought that it could have gone a little bit further. Like when Bowen had that line about how he drugged himself because he couldn't handle it anymore. I thought that was like a good step. And I thought that maybe they would have explored that a little bit more, but then they just kind of went back to, oh, the dress was expensive and things like that, which, it is funny, but it just didn't really hit for me.
Right. Or they could have drawn on more culty stuff. Like they could have gone in the opposite direction. They could have combined it with like actual like scary stuff from some of the cult documentaries. Like it was kind of, just could have gone deeper.
It felt like they were trying to focus on basically the pressure that was being put upon each of the bridesmaids. And I think that Molly Carney was really fantastic in this one. I did pull this line because I thought it was so good.
Hey, Brittany, can we talk for a sec?
They're like smacking with the clipboard. I thought that was so good. And like, huge props to JAJ, who I think was playing the part of the documentary, like voice of, a very educated person in the field. And, the way that he was so serious about everything except this.
The penis stuff is very funny. I will say that.
Which is pretty much a theme for the entire episode, by the way. But I think there was a lot of really fun moments here. Haskell, do you have any bachelor or bachelorette party stories or thoughts on this sketch?
Well, my bachelor party stories are in the vault for good, locked up. So I can't get into that at all. But I thought as somebody who's not deep into having to go to bachelorette parties or be a part of that, I thought it was like a nice slice of life sketch. I did think that they were going to play off of maybe a bachelor party or the groom side of it a little bit more with everything going on, what they have to do. I thought we'd maybe cut over and see how like simple the other side was. But I thought it was I so often complain about sketches not taking it to 11. And I kind of appreciated this one, not taking it to 11 and just being sort of a slice of life sort of thing.
Can you at least tell us if your bachelor party was in Nashville?
It was not.
Okay. All right. Noted. Yeah, no, I thought this was really fun, and again, just a very solid, part of a great collection of sketches throughout the night. So, Haskell, were there any other moments from the night that you would like us to talk about?
I just want just a couple things about the monologue. Quinta Brunson, there's so like it almost feels that you have to, at this point, you have to either acknowledge growing up watching SNL with your family, or you have to acknowledge wanting to be on SNL. And it's so hard to like make that your own. And it was a very quick line, but her line about how I actually wanted to be on SNL, but the audition process is so long, I thought was a really like unique joke on that one. I really liked that joke. And I liked the stuff with Obama. I mean, come on, get him to host. That would be a huge episode. I would love that. And just ultimately in that and a lot of the other stuff that Quinta Brunson did, and I know we'll probably recap about her before we, wrap up, but I just loved it. As somebody who watches Abbott Elementary and is not too familiar with her other work, I really loved her getting out of her character a little bit and doing some really bizarre sort of stuff.
Yeah, especially in that bosses sketch where she was able to like go into full Sarah mode and be like a character like that. Totally agree with you there. Gabby, were there any moments from the night for you that you would like us to talk about?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch upon bosses really quickly. It just felt I had been like rewatching some old episodes of SNL, just like kind of having them on, and I recently saw the 2002 episode with where Sarah Michelle Gellar hosted, and the first thing that came to my mind was Chris Parnell as Merv the Perv, because in that episode specifically, they had it was a sexual harassment like seminar, and so I'm just like, watching that episode in the year 2023, I'm like, oh boy, surely it's something that they can't really bring back today. But in a way, they kind of did. Although, as insane and crass as it was, I think that they made it a little bit more, I'll say, digestible. In that way that they had Sarah and Quinta play these creepy, disgusting characters, and then just made it completely absurd with the Penis Brothers, like jackets and all of I did not know where the sketch was going to go. And I also just fully appreciated seeing at the end credits, Sarah just in the full like getup with the bedazzled shirt with just like Penis Brothers just in big letters on the back as everyone's saying their good nights and like hugging each other.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite moments of the show, when you see somebody who just hasn't changed yet from, and they're out there for good nights. That's always like a really great Easter egg for anybody who goes back and watches those episodes. But yeah, huge fan of Sarah Michelle Gellar, by the way, on SNL. Totally underrated host from the history of the show. But yeah, that is very funny. I thought this was a really fun sketch. I had been really missing getting some Sarah Sherman character pieces on the show over the last few weeks. So it was great to have that. And Quinta was a great scene partner for Sarah. Amanda, did you like this sketch?
Yes, I did. It was really cool to see Quinta match Sarah's energy and rise to Sarah's energy. It was funny to see Chloe break. I saw her post on Instagram, a repost of them like banging on her boobs and making that noise. And she like her caption was like in heaven. So I feel like you could tell that they were just having a really good time to close out the night. So I enjoyed that. I thought Molly did a really good job. I think Molly did a good job showing their range tonight. So just props to Molly for that. They can kind of do anything if they get the spots. So I'd like to see Molly in more spots. And yeah, I liked it. It was a really good, I guess it wasn't a 10-1. In my mind, it was the 10-1. Obviously,
well, it was supposed to be, right?
Right. And the vibes are 10-1. But yeah.
Yeah.
And Bowen was funny too. Actually, thinking of Bowen being like, oh yeah, like I'm old fashioned, like I didn't really notice, but I'm just old fashioned was funny.
Yeah, probably my favorite Bowen moment of the night. Haskell, what did you think of this sketch, the Bosses one?
I thought it was really good. I think they did kind of behind what was a lot of silliness, hid a real message there, which is kind of excusing the sexual harassment through either people that are popular in the office or, being old fashioned or, that sort of stuff. So I think in a very, very silly way, they got kind of an important message across. But as for the sketch itself, it's a very, very different vibe from, say, like the Vogelchecks. But I love those sort of sketches that can show how close cast members are. And clearly, what they're doing to Chloe in the sketch, both kind of what they're doing to her, what they're saying about her, really only works if you're a tight knit cast or if you're close with somebody. So to see that she was comfortable and Sarah was comfortable and they did that together, it just kind of shows a tight knit bond there. Those are sort of things that, like you said, are we in a new golden era of the show? Too early to say that, obviously, but it's one of those things that's just a sign of things that potentially could come.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion for like 2025. But like, I think we're getting we like I said, we had the initial seeds of it. I think this was really another fun moment of the night. Probably my favorite piece after update. So glad we got to talk about it a little bit. And the only other thing I would say is like, I just thought Michael Longfellow was so good on Weekend Update this week as well, which we didn't touch on. But I laughed so hard when Che asked him to move his head and he was like, it was so good. And of course, he talks about the Italian version of Saturday Night Live, where this would happen.
Our Matt Foley lived in a man down by the river.
Which I thought was so great. So I asked myself, I was like, what would an Italian version of Saturday Night Live look like? And I figured, like, who better to ask than ChatGPT to ask what sketches we would get to see on an Italian version of SNL. By the way, we put out a fun clip on Twitter and Instagram yesterday of a little bit of a Vinny Vedecci from, which could easily have been in an Italian version of SNL. But I asked ChatGPT, I said, like, what would an Italian version of SNL look like? So here we go. If there was to be an Italian version of Saturday Night Live, it would likely be a comedy sketch show that satirizes and lampoons various aspects of Italian culture, politics, and entertainment. Some potential recurring sketches could include La Familia, a spoof of traditional Italian family dynamics and archetypes. Ciao Italia, a parody of cheesy Italian variety shows. Bur Lucioni Tonight, a send-up of Italian talk shows. How about this one called The Pope's Inbox, which is a sketch imagining humorous emails that the Pope might receive. Very creative, ChatGPT. And finally, Pizza Wars, a recurring parody of Italian food culture and rivalries between different regions. So I don't know if any of those sketches appeal to you, but I feel like, is ChatGPT the PDD guys? Like, are they pretty much the same thing where they're just taking the most basic stereotypes of cultures? Anyways, Haskell, any of those Italian sketches appeal to you?
No, I hope that if there was, Italian SNL going back years, that it would have just been a whole season hosted by cast members from The Sopranos. Just Pauly Walnuts hosting like 3 times a season. That's all I would have wanted out of it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Gabby, what would an Italian version of SNL feel like to you?
I can't help but think about the Jersey Shore, and if this had been an option maybe like 10 or so years ago, but how insane that would be. But no, I do think that Pope sketch seems pretty interesting and risky.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, the situation would be our George Carlin or their George Carlin. Amanda, any ideas for Italian SNL?
It sounds like the White Lotus. I mean, you're saying Sopranos. Is it like the Sicilian SNL? Is it the like mob moves to Jersey Italians SNL? I need to know like a little bit more specifics. I want to be specific about the culture that we're parodying. So
yeah, it did say at the end. It did say overall, an Italian version of SNL would likely aim to push boundaries and challenge taboos. So, all right,
by penetration on air.
Yeah, exactly. Penetration on there, the Pope's Inbox, a classic recurring sketch from all the way back in the day for the start of Italian SNL. So, and I love our friend James Matthew Andrews in the chat says the Pope's Inbox is just a modern day Father Guido Sarducci. So that is really great. But yeah, this is always fun. And I've always dreamed, I mean, there was some talk about the SNL UK. Maybe that'll happen one day. So it'll be fun. If SNL ever goes international, we will be there to cover it. So yeah, overall, really, really fun episode from this particular week. We did ask the audience, as we do every single week, who their MVP was from the week. And, you know, just to talk about some of the candidates, Quinta Brunson was in 8 sketches, truly, really fit in with the cast this week. Ego, Chloe, and Punky were all in 4 sketches. Keenan and Heidi in 3, and Bowen as well. Mikey and Andrew in 2. Those were repertory class. JJ and Devin in 4 sketches. Sarah, Longfellow, Marcello in 3, and then Molly in 2 sketches as well. Of course, Colin Jost and Michael Che had those amazing moments on Weekend Update as well. So lots of people to pick from, including PDD as well this week. Amanda, I'm going to ask you for who you think the top 3 MVP vote getters were from this week.
Quinta Brunson, Mikey Day, JAJ.
All right, Quinta, Mikey, and JAJ Haskell. Who's your top 3 for the week?
Number 3, I'm glad we mentioned him here, but Mikey Longfellow. Mikey Longs, man, was really good. Number 2 would be, I'm actually going to go with Marcello here. Again, a guy we didn't talk about a ton tonight, but it was super fun. And I don't do this often, but my number 1 is Quinta Brunson, the host. The term blended in with the cast we use a lot, and sometimes can be like a nice way of saying didn't stand out a ton. But I thought she was one of those that was in the cast, but they weren't hiding. And it just had a bunch of really good lines and performances through the night.
For sure. And I'll just remind our audience that last time with host Jenna Ortega was the first time all season that we didn't have the host in the top 5. So will Quinta stop that streak and make it into the top of the MVP vote getting? We'll find out in a minute after we get the picks from Gabby.
Yeah, so I will have to go with, in the number 1 spot, Quinta. And then I'll say Michael Longfellow, and then Marcello.
All right, so Quinta, Longfellow, and Marcello. I will bring up your results from week number 16, our top 5 MVP vote getters. And here we go. 33% of the vote went to Quinta Brunson as the MVP for week number 16. So great job, Quinta. Really, like I said, fit in, was fantastic. Mikey Day, 22% of the vote comes in second place. So people seem to really love what he's doing on the show. Mikey Longs, number 3, 17%. So great job to Michael Longfellow there. Michael Che, I think for the first time all season, makes it into the MVP vote getting. So people love that he pulled off that prank. And then James Austin Johnson there with 7%. So our top 5 this week, Quinta, Mikey Day, Michael Longfellow, Michael Che, and James Austin Johnson. You may have seen also online, we asked this morning if you felt that Michael Che and Colin Jost should return for another season. I will say overwhelmingly, almost 75 to 80% of the vote went to yes, they would like to see them return. So I think it's just an interesting perspective to get from our Instagram and Twitter audiences. Thanks for everybody who voted in those, and we'll keep putting those up every single Monday. All right, for now, let's turn our attention to next week's show, hosted by former cast member Molly Shannon and musical guest from the Jonas Brothers. Obviously, Nick Jonas hosted the show a couple years ago, so perhaps we may see some of the Jonas Brothers in sketches. They have appeared in sketches many years throughout the show, but really focus on Molly Shannon, who was a cast member from 1995 to 2001, I believe. She was absolutely dynamic, comes on in season 20, is one of the really underrated additions of the show, stays on into this new era cast and just produces these incredible characters, Delicious Dish, Mary Catherine Gallagher, and comes back to host the show in season 32. So this will be her second time hosting the show. And now she, as a fan favorite, finally makes her return to SNL. The first time we're going to see her on a canon episode of SNL. I guess she was on the At Home episode very briefly for a Hal Wilner tribute, but the first time for real to see her live at Studio 8H on the show since the Betty White episode back in 2010. So Amanda, are you excited to have Molly Shannon host the show?
I'm really excited. I'm also excited for the Jonas Brothers. I want to see more cameos. I was a little disappointed there were no Abbott Elementary co-star cameos this week. Not that I wanted to take away from Quinta's moment or that I want to take away from Molly's moment, but sometimes I think short cameos can kind of boost the energy and even give some momentum to the hosts, especially first-time hosts. But I'd like to see some former cast members. I feel like it's almost they have to when there's a former cast member bring in some others from the era if possible. So I'm excited for that. I'm also excited to see Jonas Brothers in a sketch. Hopefully, I feel like it's been a bit since we've had a musical guest appear in a sketch. So mix it up. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm definitely excited.
Haskell, what did you think of the idea of having Molly Shannon finally come back to host the show?
I love it. It's something that, and I know she's, she's had like a year or two now where, she has shows going on, like her name is out there, but it really is a shame that we don't see a ton of like great cast members who haven't like lit the world. They're not huge stars when they leave SNL, that we don't see them come back. For me, it's along the lines of like a Will Forte, who hasn't necessarily, like, he had TV shows, he's done stuff outside of SNL. I don't think he's reached the level of, say, like a Kristen Wiig or a Bill Hader or even now a Jason Sudeikis, but he still came back to host. And that's really cool to see. So I'm excited to see her doing that again. I do think that we are going to get an Anna Gasteyer cameo, with her show being on NBC. If she's not, that'd be a huge disappointment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is interesting compared to the cast that would come after them. Pretty much every single one of them has hosted Saturday Night Live, and Keenan's still on the show. But the cast that Molly was mainly a part of is, not as many of them have come back and hosted the show. And especially, obviously Sherry O'Terry has not come back and hosted the show. Anna Gasteyer has not, but we do get Molly Shannon coming back again. And for people who love that era of the show, the late 90s, early 2000s, I think this is going to be a very exciting week for you. So Gabby, what are your expectations?
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. I wanted to do an impression of Superstar, but then I chickened out.
You can do it.
Star. But yes, I'm very excited. I do love it. Seeing some of these, more classic, I guess, classic now the 90s, SNL cast members return. I have been loving her in I Love That For You with Vanessa Bayer, which if you have not seen it, I highly recommend. It's a very funny show. And she's also in The Other Two. And I just have always loved her energy, just seeing her pop in different, make different guest appearances in movies and TV shows over the years. I always know that I'm in for like a good time when she's on my screen. And so I'm very excited for that. And I'm also excited to see how she, her dynamic with this new cast and what kind of roles they'll end up putting her in, and if she'll even maybe contribute to some of the sketches, like writing some of the sketches, and see what that's like.
Yeah, that's the best part, right? When you get somebody from a different era of the show interacting with these people, like seeing Molly Shannon and Molly Carney in a sketch together. How cool is that? So I think there's a lot of possibilities here. And I think there's a lot of possibilities for cameos, like Amanda talked about. Like, could this be an inspiration for Vanessa Bayer maybe to pop in, somebody not from the same era, but somebody that has worked with Molly Shannon recently, as Gabby has pointed out. So I think like this is, some of the most fun of the week when you get a very famous person from the show itself to come back and host, is the speculation and expectations of what we could possibly get. And I'm so excited for it. I can't wait to go back and watch her season 32 hosted episode to get a reminder of everything that happened over there. I remember watching it live and being like, okay, this is really cool. So I'm very excited for it, and great job for SNL for putting this one together. All right, so tonight was a really, really fantastic roundtable. We have 2 more shows before we get to the Molly Shannon episode. And on Wednesday night, we will have Mike Murray, who will be here with Andrew Haynes and Zoe Walker to break down all of the stats from the week, talking through everything on our By the Number show. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern on a Wednesday. And then I'll be back on Thursday night with 2 amazing patrons to answer your questions from the week, and look forward to the Molly Shannon week. So make sure to send in your questions. We'll post that form on Twitter and Instagram tomorrow. And then, of course, our Hot Take show will be live at 1:10 a.m. Eastern after the Molly Shannon episode. And then we'll do this all over again next week as we make our way towards the end of season 48. Amanda, amazing job on your first roundtable with us. I know you've been on the podcast before, but you were fantastic tonight. So thanks for joining us. And please tell the listeners where they can reach out to you.
Oh gosh, you can't reach out to me anywhere. You can. No, I'm just kidding. I just didn't prepare that. If you need any IP law needs, you can email me at abarkin@fkks.com. You can find me on Instagram at barkinface. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jon.
Absolutely. Haskell, what's up with you? Are you having any stand-up dates coming up soon?
Yeah, I'll actually be making my first trip to New Jersey. I'll be in Chester, New Jersey, this Friday night for 2 shows. And then for my all of our New England friends, I will be at the Rhode Island Comedy Connection April 13th. So I'd love to see you guys there. Twitter, Instagram, at Andrew E. Haskell.
Amazing. And Haskell and I were on a great Superfan takeover breaking down the greatest commercial parodies of all time. That came out last week. So in case you missed that show, as well as our interview with Daryl Hammond a couple weeks ago, some really fun off-week shows between last run and this run. Gabby, thank you for joining us. So where can listeners reach out to you or anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram if you want. No pressure. It's at modestly_awesome because I made that username one day when I was 12 and just kept it. So that's it.
Yeah, well, that is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody for joining us in the chat tonight. Always appreciate you. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram at the SNL Network and find me at Jon Schneider 24. On behalf of Amanda, Haskell, Gabby, and everybody here with us on this Monday night, we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.